What's up, VC? This is my time. This is my time. We're going to be talking about the 80s today, right? We're doing a contest entry about the 80s, so stick with me. I can feel the wind blowing through my mullet on the back of my neck. Feels good. Takes me back to those days when I can remember the Cold War. I can remember the first PC from IBM, the Space Shuttle Challenger, assassination attempts taking place all over the world, the wall coming down in Berlin. The 80s. What else happened in the 80s? Hair. Hair was everything in the 80s. Aquanut pretty much dominated the world in the 80s. There was big hair, there was mullet hair, there was frosted tips hair, there was the mohawk hair, there was the permanent hair, there was just giant big hair in the 80s, and it was awesome, right? How about pop collars? Pop collars, leather ties, rolled cuffs on your jeans, everything neon. Parachute pants, if you haven't heard of those, look them up. You need a pair. Parachute pants from the 80s. What else about the 80s? We had Madonna. We had Michael Jackson. We had the birth of MTV. Al Gore was inventing the internet back then. It's true. Look it up. E.T., The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles. Did I mention there was a lot of big hair in the 80s? There were these jackets you wore from Miami Vice where you pushed the sleeves up and looked really cool, like Krug's and Tockett? What? Tubbs and Crockett. Yeah, that's who they were. The 80s. Mr. T. The A-Team. What else? Pretty much the 80s were just awesome. I love the 80s. That was my time. That was my era. So today we're going to be talking about the 80s. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? So get a clue. Come along with me. Let's talk about the 80s. What is going on, vinyl community? My name is Darren. Welcome to my channel. Sure appreciate you taking a minute to watch this video. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notifications bell, do all the fun stuff that we do here on the YouTubes. Today we're talking about the 80s. This is a contest entry for Beth over at Redrum Records. Check out her channel. Really interesting stuff. I love this idea. I love the 80s, as you can tell. And basically this contest is you're supposed to name 3 movies from the 80s that you like and 3 records from the 80s. And then at the end, stick with me, there's a little bit of trivia that I'm going to give you too on the 80s. So let's start out with movies. 3 of my favorite movies from the 80s. We're going to start out with Christmas Vacation. This is pretty much the best movie in the history of Earth. Stop. Hard stop right there. This, it has everything. It's got Cousin Eddie. It was in Chicago, which I'm from Illinois, so that was kind of cool. You got Russ wearing the Illini sweatshirt, which as a kid we thought, man, that's, big props there to Russ representing. You got Grandma saying grace. You got the squirrel. You got Snots. You got Cousin Eddie. Did I say Cousin Eddie? Chevy Chase was just a giant in this movie. I mean, there's so much. This is just a hilarious movie. I watch it. Maybe the movie I've watched the most in my entire life. As many times as any that I can think of. So we loved this movie at our house. And so got to go with Christmas Vacation. Second up, Hoosiers. Okay, I'm an Illinois boy. Grew up on a farm, central Illinois, about 5 miles from the Indiana border. So Hoosiers was kind of a big deal. Basketball, this movie represented a lot of things for us. One, basketball was king in Indiana. This is, if you haven't seen this movie, it's about a small school, David and Goliath kind of story about the Hickory Huskers. Which is not even a real name, okay? But this, anyway, the Hickory Huskers. I think it was the Milan Indians was the real name of the team. But anyway, this is probably the greatest basketball movie in the history of Earth. Hard stop, really. It's got everything. Gene Hackman. I said, connects to my culture. Gene Hackman's from Danville, Illinois. I grew up just north of there. Amazing actor, amazing movie. What else did it have in it? It had Jimmy Chitwood. I don't know, his name Jimmy Chitwood. He was trying to get a scholarship at Wabash College. It had the History Huskers. The History High Huskers. That's hard to say. And it had, what else? It had everything. I mean, it was just a great, wholesome comeback, David versus Goliath sports movie, and I love it. So if you haven't checked out Hoosiers, you need to watch this. This is a great movie. I've actually, side note here, you can actually go to the gym where some of this was filmed. I believe it's in Milan, Indiana, but I've stopped by there. We can shoot some hoops, hang out, see some stuff about the movie. So finally, third movie I'm going to talk about, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Pretty much the greatest business travel movie in the history of Earth. Hard stop, right there. Who's got, oh my gosh, Steve Martin. Steve Martin is like my favorite comedian as a kid. Steve Martin and John Candy. Why couldn't I remember John Candy? I love John Candy too. But Steve Martin, I think I had the 45 of King Tut. You remember King Tut, his single that he released? But anyway, this is like, I don't know. It's just a great movie. Couple guys, kind of a buddy movie, stumbling around trying to get home for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I can't remember. But they just make the worst out of a bad situation over and over and over again. A famous line, "Those aren't two pillows." Probably my favorite one from the movie, but great movie from the 80s, and check it out if you haven't seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. All right, moving along. Let's talk about some records. Okay, there's a lot of different directions I could have went on this 3 records from the 80s. I'm not going with the 3 best records, not even my 3 most favorite records from the 80s. When you think about all the great artists from the 80s, you had Michael Jackson, John Cougar Mellencamp, Prince, Madonna, Springsteen, all the bands. I mean, just amazing music in the 80s. But I'm going to go with the genre, and there were a lot of genres if you think about it in the 80s. You had hair metal, you had rock, you had pop music, you had the birth of hip-hop going on, you had actually grunge starting up late in the 80s. There just was a lot of great music being produced in the 80s. But I'm going to go with the genre I think best represents what I listened to the most, or what I, that really was kind of happening with the friends that I hung out with. So, and that's hair metal. Hair metal in the 80s, all right? So we're going to talk about 3 records, and the most hair metal, I think, of all hair metal albums that I have is Poison. Sorry for the glare there. Open Up and Say Ah. Okay, this record, believe it or not, that cover, let's take this out here so you can see this, was actually banned. It was just too racy at the time. My, how we have changed. Beautiful red vinyl on this one, but this was this was just check out the back too. Come on, that just says I'm ready for a good time. Dudes looking like girls. I don't know. It was just a fun time, but this nothing but a good time. I mean, that is just probably the big hit that I remember from this record. Other than Every Rose Has Its Thorn. You guys, if you don't know this record, most of you probably do if you're watching an 80s video, but this was just a fantastic example of a great hair metal record, and I'm just glad to have it. I listen to it often, kind of like it. So next up, Unten, Gleeten, Glauten, Globen, in with the cowbell. There's kind of on the side there. Def Leppard, Pyromania. This came out in, I think, 83, if I remember right. Produced by Johnny Mutt Lang. Def Leppard was going more into a radio-friendly kind of version of their music. And this thing was, I think, the only reason it didn't hit number one because of Michael Jackson Thriller was out at the same time, but this was a diamond certified record. Photograph, Rock of Ages, Foolin'. This is just fantastic hard rock. And I think I've seen Def Leppard a couple times in concert. Just a fantastic band. And this was, for me, this was their prime and a great 80s record. Okay, we're going late 80s for the last one. And I could have went with a number of different albums from this band in the 80s because they were, again, very representative of the hair metal scene. You know, the California hair metal band, LA hair metal at its best, Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood. And I read a review about this. It's kind of harsh, but it kind of makes sense. Some dumb guys really trying hard on this record. So it's kind of shallow, but man, it rocks, and it's really good. I mean, it's produced well. Kickstart My Heart, Don't Go Away Mad, Without You, and you know the title track, Dr. Feelgood. Tommy Lee is just killing it on that song, and Tommy he as a kid, I'm like this guy. He was just a very showman-like drummer, but just heavy and hard-hitting and creative. And check out the back of this one. This is a reissue. This was actually when was this from? But it says it's cut from the original analog master tape. So this record does sound good, you know, for being a later 80s record. And I don't know, analog tape. They must have recorded that to analog. So anyway, so that's it, really. Except for, I told you to hang on. Except for, I need you to, in the comments, do me a favor. Got a trivia question for you as part of this 80s contest that we're doing here. You guys remember the game of the 80s? Simon? Remember Simon? The game? We had the little colored buttons. You had to press them in order as the sound and the light went off. Fantastic game. I want you to name... Now, don't Google this. Come on. You can Google it, but let's go from memory here. If you played Simon, tell me the color, the order from clockwise. Is it that way or this? Your way. Clockwise. There's 4 colors. Tell me what those colors in order clockwise were. So starting at the top, going around. Going around. All right. So anyway, if you stuck with me, I sure appreciate it. And I like talking about the 80s. I don't know. It's just kind of fun, nostalgic for me. And I really appreciate this contest. This was a fun one, so I hope you enjoyed it. That's about it for me. Thanks for hanging out with me. Until the next time, we'll see you later.